You called Zelenskyy a dictator. Would you use the same words regarding Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens. I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. And, you know, you're talking about Europe.
This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, February the 25th, coming to you from Athens, Greece. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with Trump and Macron meeting in the White House. Macron in the United States to convince Trump to support Project Ukraine and ditch Russia. Trump probably convinced Macron to support his dialogue with Russia when all was said and done. So Macron goes there to convince Trump one thing, and I believe by the end of the meeting, Macron flip-flopped towards Trump's position. At least that's how it looked to me. But there were some reports claiming that Trump did not greet Macron as his car arrived to the White House, but that was fake news. I saw videos of Trump greeting Macron as he arrived to the White House. These were videos published by the White House. So Trump did meet Macron at the doors of the White House, and they had a meeting in the Oval Office before they had a private meeting. So they were in the Oval Office speaking with reporters. Then they went and talked on their own, and then they had a press conference in the Oval Office. You could tell that Macron was fidgety. He was fidgety. He was nervous. That's how it looked to me. He was definitely not comfortable. Trump was very comfortable. One of the reporters asked Trump to call Putin a dictator. Putin is a dictator, right, President Trump? And Trump's response was, not really. No, I don't use those kinds of words. He calls Elensky a dictator, and they wanted him to call Putin a dictator, as Macron is sitting right next to him, and Trump was having none of that. He was like, no, I don't use those words. And as Trump said that, as he refused to call Putin a dictator, poor Macron. Poor Macron. At first he was smiling. He's like, yeah, Trump's going to call him a dictator. He's going to call him a dictator. And then when Trump gave his response, Macron turned, his face went from happy to sad. That smile turned into a frown. Poor little Napoleon. But look, Trump, he talked about business with Russia. He talked about ending the war, of course. He said the war would never have happened if I was president. I want this war to end. All the stuff that we're used to Trump saying. But he was talking about business, the rare earth minerals and more. You can see that the narrative is now starting to shift up. Trump is starting to say rare earth minerals and other things. I'm noticing that. So they're starting to move away from the whole rare earth minerals, and they're talking about doing business with other resources, oil and gas and stuff like that. Because the rare earth minerals was, I believe that was just a way for the Trump administration to open the door to doing business with Russia. That's why the whole rare earth minerals was brought up. This was the Trump administration's way of introducing the concept of business with Putin's Russia. And so Trump is now starting to say minerals and other things. Anyway, he was talking about doing business. He said that when he called Putin, Putin showed him a lot of respect. He said that the United States wants its money back. And as Macron was sitting next to him, he says the U.S. is in it for 350 billion and Europe is only in it for 100 billion, and that's in the form of a loan. Macron interrupted him and he said, actually, with all due respect, he's like, look, just to clarify, yes, we did give Ukraine money in the form of a loan, but it's also in the form of grants and other stuff. But anyway, that was what Macron had to say about that, as Trump was breaking down the numbers. But Trump posted on True Social an interesting statement. He said, "Today, President Emmanuel Macron of France joined me in the Oval Office to speak to the G7 summit. The meeting was convened by Governor Trudeau of Canada, the current chair of the G7, to acknowledge the third anniversary of the Russia-Ukraine war, which would have never started if I was president. Everyone expressed their goal of seeing the war end, and I emphasized the importance of the vital critical minerals and rare earth deal between the United States and Ukraine, which we hope will be signed very soon. This deal, which is an economic partnership, will ensure the American people recoup the tens of billions of dollars in military equipment sent to Ukraine, while also helping Ukraine's economy grow as the brutal and savage war comes to an end." This is the important part. "At the same time, I am in serious discussions with President Vladimir Putin of Russia concerning the ending of the war and also major economic development transactions which will take place between the United States and Russia. Talks are proceeding very well." Business, man. At the end of the day, when all of this wraps up, it's all about resources, or at least that's going to be the deal that's going to be made. It's going to be about resources. And it's going to be mainly between Russia and the United States. My feeling is Russia, the United States, with some BRICS in there as well. And Europe will be left out in the cold. So during the press conference afterwards, when they had a press conference outside of the Oval Office, Macron was talking up the peacekeepers idea. He kept on talking that up, and he kept on emphasizing peacekeepers, European peacekeepers. 30 countries or something like that are ready to pitch in and send their military to Ukraine, but not on the front lines, and always with U.S. security and support. He kept on saying that. Not on the front lines, always with U.S. security and support. So he kept on talking about the peacekeepers idea, for which Trump said, I have no problem with it. That's what Trump said. I have no problem with European peacekeepers there. You guys want to send peacekeepers to Ukraine? Go ahead. That was Trump's response. No problem with European peacekeepers. Macron actually gave an interview to Fox News, to Bret Baier. And he said that the conflict could end in a couple of weeks. That's what he told Bret Baier, that the conflict could end in a couple of weeks. Oh, in the Oval Office, Macron also brought up the Russian frozen assets. This was an interesting statement as he was talking about a possible deal in Ukraine between Ukraine, Russia. He said that Europe has to be involved as well, the United States. He said Europe has to be involved in a possible deal. But he said maybe the 300 billion will be given to us as a gift or something like that. He brought up the 300 billion as part of a possible big deal that could take place, and perhaps the 300 billion in Russian frozen assets will play a part in this deal, and perhaps it will be given as a gift or something like that. I forgot the exact words that Macron used. I'll put it up on the screen so all of us can see the exact words that Macron used, but he brought that up as well. But with the interview with Fox News, he said that there could be a deal in Ukraine in a couple of weeks, and he said that France supports a deal. So that's what I'm saying. Macron went there to pitch his whole peacekeepers thing. Trump said, I don't have a problem with it. Send whatever troops you want to send to Ukraine as peacekeepers, whatever. Russia has to agree to that, and we all know that Russia's not going to agree to that. But when all was said and done, it looked like Macron was brought around to Trump's position, which is that the United States is going to be speaking with Russia, business is going to be done, and Macron wants in on some of the action. That's the sense that I got. Macron was sitting there saying, crap, we're going to be left out of this. I need to get in on some of this this minerals, gas, oil action that is being talked about between Russia and the United States. So I think I think that Macron actually got to Trump's position when all was said and done. But of course, Macron will go back to Europe and he'll flip-flop back to the Elensky, Ursula position. I mean, this is classic Macron, man. He's a flippin', he's a floppin', he's Emmanuel Macron. Oh, man, Macron also said one of the biggest lies, which infuriated me. This was a big lie, and I'm just going to read you the post from Mario Naufal, Macron talking about the Minsk agreements. This is from the account of Mario Naufal. Macron warns Trump, Putin violated peace before. There is good reason for President Trump to re-engage with President Putin, but my experience is the following, and I shared it with President Trump and the team. In 2014, our predecessors negotiated peace with President Macron, but because of the lack of guarantees, especially security guarantees, President Putin violated this peace. I had several discussions, especially at the beginning of 2022, with President Putin 15 days before the launching of the attack. He denied everything, but we didn't have security guarantees. He's pushing security guarantees. He wants U.S. security for the European troops into Ukraine. As I've said many times, he wants the European troops in Ukraine. He wants the U.S. to back them up. Then something will happen to the European troops, and Macron will cry like a little baby to Trump for help. But Russia's never going to agree to this. I think that the Trump administration knows that Russia's not going to agree to European peacekeepers. So the U.S.'s position is, if you want to send peacekeepers, go ahead. Just don't bother us. Don't bother the U.S. But what a lie from Macron, huh? What a lie. Hollande has said that the Minsk agreements were just a way to buy time so that Ukraine can rearm. Merkel said 3 times, in 3 interviews, I believe, she said that the Minsk agreements were just a way to fool Russia, buy time, and rearm Ukraine. And Poroshenko, who was part of those negotiations at the beginning, said that the Minsk agreements were just a way for Ukraine to buy time and rearm. So, I mean, Macron is just flat out lying here. Absolutely lying in this statement. If there was any side that was sabotaging peace deals, Minsk 1, Minsk 2, Istanbul in 2022, it was Ukraine, the US, Europe, NATO, the collective West. Boris Johnson, who, by the way, was in Kiev yesterday to celebrate the 3-year anniversary, to take part in the events of the 3-year anniversary of the special military operation. Boris Johnson actually showed up in Kiev. So that was the meeting, pretty much. That was the meeting between Macron and Trump. Next up, 008, Keir Stormer. My name is Stormer, Keir Stormer, 008. License to put you to sleep because I'm the most boring man in the world. So yeah, Europe wants in on the not so rare minerals. What a distraction, what a farce these minerals, this mineral narrative is, man. Oil and gas, I can see it. The gas transit. I can see the gas transit. I can see the oil. I can see the gas. I can see the Black Sea ports. All of that's there. The agriculture, all of that I understand. And there are rare earth minerals, but this whole 15 trillion in rare earth minerals and their rare narrative is a fantasy. It is a fantasy, but Europe now wants in on this. Europe doesn't want in on the rare earth minerals. Europe wants in on the deal that Trump and Putin are working on. They don't want to be left out. They're sensing that they're going to be left out of some very big deal, and we're talking money and power, and there's nothing that the European kleptocrats love more than money and power. But we're getting this article here, which says EU proposes deal with Ukraine on critical materials. EU representatives want to conclude their own minerals resources agreement with Kiev, writes Figaro. Ukraine can provide 21 of the 30 critical minerals that Europe needs within the framework of a mutually beneficial partnership, said European Commission Vice President Stephanie Séjourné. Yeah, Europe wants in. They finally understood, finally, the brainiacs, the smart people in the EU. They finally understood that, oh crap, we're being left out. We're being left out. We better try to muscle our way in, try to push our way in. We'll see if Trump and Putin let them. We will see, but that's the news out of Europe. And then we had the Putin interview. Actually, Putin had a meeting with top-level Russian officials. I believe it was with Russian officials. It was a Zoom video type of meeting. And it was focused on rare earth minerals. It's incredible, man. Oh, my God. Who called rare earth minerals to solving the Ukraine conflict? Who had that on their bingo card? Yeah, he was having a meeting on rare earth minerals. Obviously, all of this is set up and staged, obviously. And then he had an interview with his favorite journalist, Zarubin, where he talked about doing business with the United States, not only with regards to rare earth, but in all kinds of stuff, including the Arctic, oil, gas, everything. And then this was also set up, and the timing was obviously set up as well. Maybe even coordinated with the Trump administration. I don't know anymore. I don't know what to say, but I've just got a feeling that the U.S. and Russia are, Trump administration, the Putin administration are planning all of this out, it seems. They're taking us. I feel like they're taking us somewhere. They're leading us along to some sort of a big deal, a big, grand bargain. But, Putin, in his interview with Zarubin, he said that Russia has a whole lot more rare earth minerals, a whole lot more of everything than Ukraine. And he's talking Russia, let's say pre-2014 Russia is what he was talking about. And then he also said that, hey, he said, we'll do business with our partners and with the United States, he said, pre-2014 Russia. And then he said, we also have the 4 new oblasts. And he said there's all kinds of minerals and resources there as well. We don't have an exact value, he said, but there's all kinds of minerals in the 4 oblasts. And he's talking the entirety of the 4 oblasts. Keep in mind that if all of Zaporozhye, if Istanbul Plus is agreed to, we're talking about all of Zaporozhye and all of Kherson. That includes most of the minerals and the mines and the deposits, because there's a whole big chunk. Most of it is in the Donbass, which Russia controls, but the other big chunk is Zaporozhye in the south of Ukraine, which, if Istanbul Plus is agreed to, then Russia will also have that as well. And Putin said the 4 new oblasts, and I imagine he's talking about the 4. He's definitely talking about the 4 oblasts in their entirety, as per the Russian constitution. He's saying there's all kinds of stuff there, and Putin said, look, if there's one country that can help the United States and that can do business with the United States and can actually mine this stuff and make it successful, it's Russia. And we're ready to do business with the U.S. He's saying he's calling the U.S. partners again. He's calling the U.S. partners. Or he's getting to the point where he's calling them partners. I don't think he said our partners in the U.S., but he said our partners and the Americans. So he's also getting very close to saying U.S. partners. It's just it's an Annalena 360 turnaround. Right, Annalena? 360, we're going to miss you, Annalena. But you might be in the government. You might be in the government. We don't know. But he said that. So he said all of that, talking about business with the U.S. And that's how we're going to get it to a deal in Ukraine. We're going to do business. It's incredible. But he also said there's some obstacles. Putin just laid it all out. He says, we're talking to the Americans. We're making progress. It's not easy. We're talking business. We're talking minerals. We're talking rare earth. We're talking resources. We're talking everything. Russia, the 4 oblasts. But there are some obstacles, and he laid out the obstacles. Take a guess what the obstacles are. Well, there's actually one tiny green green obstacle. Yep, that's right. You know who we're talking about. The tiny green obstacle, he said. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. He said Elensky is the obstacle. Yeah, he said he's toxic. He actually used the words. Elensky is toxic to the people of Ukraine, to the military of Ukraine, to the negotiations, to business dealings with the United States, to the minerals and the resources in Ukraine that the U.S. and Russia can work together to mine, to get to. He said all of these things. Zelensky's an obstacle to all of these things. And then Putin said what we need is elections. He says elections will do the trick. We have elections, we remove the obstacle. He said, Elensky, there's no chance that Elensky will win in elections. He actually brought up Zelenskyy, which I found kind of odd. Even though it's true, what Putin said is fact. So you gotta acknowledge that. I found it interesting that he was talking about Zelenskyy, because he said that if there are elections, fair elections in Ukraine, and Zelenskyy is the other candidate, he said Zelenskyy would win easily. He's right. But I don't know, is Russia okay with Zelenskyy? Zelensky's a Banderite, man. He's a Banderite, and I'm convinced that Zelenskyy is a UK asset. That's my opinion. I think he's a UK asset 100%. Anyway, that's what Putin said when he was asked about the EU and the EU's role, the Europeans' role in negotiations and some sort of a big, grand deal that looks like it's coming. Putin said, look, he said, first, bilateral talks between the U.S. and Russia. First, the adults talk, and then we'll call in the children. That's pretty much what Putin said. First, we're going to have bilateral talks with the United States. He said we have a lot of important issues to discuss. He said we haven't even started to get into the details of Ukraine. He did say that. He said we agreed that we need to come to a solution for the conflict in Ukraine, but we haven't actually gotten into the details. By the way, they're meeting today, the U.S. and Russia, in Riyadh. Delegations are going to be meeting today to get to the details. So he did say that. We have to work on the details, the root causes. But once and if the U.S. and Russia do agree on how to move forward with some sort of a negotiation or a deal in Ukraine, he said, then we can call the Europeans. That's what he said. First, the adults will talk, and then the kids will call them into the room. That was his statement with regards to Europe. And he said that Russia's open to bringing in the Europeans, but once everything is done and ironed out between the U.S. and Russia. He also said that BRICS is always being discussed. They're always being briefed on everything that's going on. He actually said that there's going to be a BRICS meeting, I believe, in New York at a UN meeting. There's going to be on the sidelines of BRICS meeting, and everything will be discussed with BRICS in detail. He actually said that he called Xi Jinping the other day, and he's briefing Xi Jinping on everything. So BRICS is always taking priority. Putin made it a point to say that BRICS and the BRICS partnership is taking priority, which leads me to believe that if there is a deal with the U.S. and Russia, with a business deal with the U.S. and Russia, then China and BRICS will be brought into it. And last on the list will be Europe and the Europeans, if they even are allowed to sit at the table. So the Putin interview was fascinating because I think he really broke it all down as to what's happening. They're talking about Ukraine. They're going to get into the details for a solution. They're going to try and address the root causes, which to me says Istanbul Plus. If Russia gets Istanbul Plus, if Russia gets sanctions relief and an election, I think we're looking at a big Russian victory. And then they end up doing business with the United States. So Trump takes a Biden loss, a Biden defeat, which is what we were looking at, and he turns it into a USW, and you remove the obstacle that is known as Elensky. I mean, Putin kind of just went through all the points one by one. So that was the Putin interview. And just to add on to that, Trump's fixer, Mr. Witkoff, the man that fixes everything, he said that U.S. companies, if there is a deal between Russia and the United States, that U.S. companies will return to Russia and they will do business in Russia. That's what Witkoff said. U.S. firms could return to Russia. Trump envoy, a peace deal in the Ukraine conflict could allow American companies to return to the Russian market, Steve Witkoff has said. And going off of what Steve Witkoff said, the Russian head of foreign investments, Kirill Dmitriev, he said that Russia is prepared to cooperate with the U.S. According to Moscow's economic envoy, international collaboration between the superpowers is key for the stability of the global economy. And Dmitriev said that it's in the best interest of world peace, of stability, for the United States and for Russia to enter into multiple long-term business agreements and investment partnerships. Said that's the best way to create stability in the world. So you have Witkoff saying American companies will be returning to Russia, and you have Dmitriev saying, the guy that's in charge of foreign investments, saying absolutely, we are going to do business with the United States. And that's how we get to stability. Notice there's no talk about Europe. There is no talk about European companies. There's no talk about European business in Russia. Europe is being left out, man. They are being cut out of all of this. And I imagine that they are panicking big time. ABC News put out an article with the title, Trump-Putin Pressure Puts Elensky in Focus on Russia War Anniversary, insiders say. Yeah, the Green Goblin is starting to freak out. He's finally starting to realize, I think he's finally getting it, huh? He is going to be dismissed. Fired. Green Goblin, you're fired. That's if he's lucky. If he's lucky, he will be dismissed or fired and allowed to disappear. That's if he's lucky. That's what he's probably hoping for. I don't know. I don't know, man. But he's finally starting to get it, that he's on the way out. And he actually went to the parliament and he tried to pass a resolution which would say that elections are impossible unless he gives the okay. That is what he tried to do. And he lost. The parliament voted against this resolution. Elensky lost majority and support in the Supreme Rada of Ukraine, their parliament. He proposed a bill that was going to make presidential elections impossible, keeping him in office until he would decide to leave. Even his own party members rejected this bill. Yeah, even his own party, the Servant of the People, the Kolomoisky AstroTurfed Servants of the People Party, they even voted against this bill. Yeah, Elensky understands he's on the way out, and he goes to the parliament and says, yeah, I want a bill in place which says that we're going to have elections when I say we're going to have elections. And the parliament said, nope. They also understand what's happening. They understand what's going on, and I think everyone is coming around to the understanding that Elensky is gone. I don't know. If I was Zelenskyy, I would call Podolyak and tell Podolyak, prepare my bags. And, I don't know, head over to Paris or London, I guess. I can't see anywhere else where he can go. I don't know anywhere else that will have him. Either Paris or London. He was saying during the EU event with Ursula sitting next to him, the Green Goblin was saying that if he doesn't get into NATO, if Ukraine doesn't get into NATO, then Ukraine's going to create its own NATO. And Ursula was sitting right next to him. Ursula probably believes it. Who knows? Yeah. Tatters, NATO, tatters. Green Goblin, Russia, tatters, NATO. Yeah, that's what he said. They're going to create their own NATO. Ukraine's NATO. So he said that as well. But we had the UN vote. Actually 2 votes that took place yesterday in the United Nations. And this is a definite sign as to where things are going. Because we had 1 vote, and I hope I'm understanding this correctly. I think I got the votes down, even though it was a bit confusing, the news that was coming out. But we had 1 vote, which was a resolution from Ukraine to the General Assembly. And then we had another vote, which was a U.S. resolution to the Security Council. And the first vote was Ukraine's resolution, which was a resolution which was condemning Russia's invasion of Ukraine, calling it Russian aggression, unprovoked, full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine. And that was the resolution to condemn Russia. And the wording was very antagonistic towards Russia. And of course, Russia was not going to approve this. But the vote took place, and it was approved in the General Assembly. They got the votes needed for the resolution to pass. But the countries that voted against this resolution not only included Russia, but it also included the United States. The U.S. sided with Russia against a Ukraine, I imagine a Ukraine, Europe, EU-sponsored resolution. And the United States voted with Russia on this. Unbelievable stuff, huh? U.S. joins Russia on vote on Ukraine. The UN has adopted Ukraine's resolution condemning Russian aggression and demanding the immediate withdrawal of Putin's forces, marking the war's 3rd anniversary. The U.S. joined Russia, North Korea, Belarus, and Hungary in opposing the resolution. I'm speechless. The U.S., Russia, Hungary, Belarus, North Korea. The U.S. teaming up with Russia to vote down this resolution. Then we get a resolution to the UN Security Council, which is a U.S. resolution, where Russia votes in favor of this resolution. And of course, the wording from the U.S. was very soft with regards to the conflict in Ukraine. In other words, they didn't use unprovoked, full-scale Russia war of aggression. The U.S. resolution avoided all of those words. And what did they get? They actually got Russia on side. And 10 countries voted in favor of this resolution in the Security Council, and 5 countries abstained. And the countries that abstained were France, the UK, I want to say Slovenia, and I want to say Spain and another country, but I forgot the other countries. But they abstained. They didn't vote against because they're afraid of the U.S. hammer coming down on them, right? That's how chicken the UK and France are. That's how scared they are of the United States, France and the UK. When push comes to shove, they are absolutely frightened of the United States, the French and the UK. That they said, we're not going to vote against this U.S.-sponsored resolution that Russia is voting in favor of, but we're just going to abstain. And they abstained. So you got 10 in favor, 0 against, and 5 abstain. That was the result of this U.S.-sponsored resolution. Nebenzia actually put out a statement. He said, look, the resolution is not perfect. Actually, Russia wanted to soften it up even more, but the UK and France, they came out strongly against that. But anyway, Nebenzia said, no problem. He said, this is a start. He said, this is a good start. We finally have a resolution that makes sense and addresses the root causes of the conflict and why we are where we are from the United States. A resolution of common sense from the United States. That's what Nebenzia said. A good starting point. Incredible stuff, man. Absolutely incredible developments yesterday. So in Germany, following the elections, BlackRock Merz gave a speech, and he ran on a platform. it was believed that he was going to close the borders. That was some of the stuff that he was saying as he was campaigning to become the next chancellor of Germany. And BlackRock Mertz was speaking to reporters yesterday, and he was asked about closing the borders. And you know what Mertz said? Borders? What borders? We never agreed to close borders. Oh boy. God help Germany. God help Germany. I don't know what to say. So yeah, that was a quick turnaround. He did a quick 180 or an Annalena 360, BlackRock Mertz. By the way, we got news that the Bundesbank reports a loss for the first time since 1979. The Bundesbank made the highest loss in its history in 2024 at 19.2 billion euros. The central bank announced this. Don't worry, Bundesbank. Don't worry about those losses. I'm sure that 20 billion to Project Ukraine will help out. I'm sure that if you give more money to Elensky, it'll help cover up those losses. Yeah, by the way, has anyone seen where the ruble is? The ruble is at 87 to the USD, I believe. Interesting development there as well. And finally, we are getting reports, just a correction from yesterday, an update from yesterday's news, that according to the Financial Times, when the U.S. Treasury Secretary was in Kiev, he was yelled at by Elensky when he was talking about money and 350 billion. Elensky lost his mind and started yelling at him. Those were the reports coming from the Financial Times. We are now getting reports that this did not happen. This was not the case. He was not yelled at. From Jack Posobiec, I was there. None of this happened at all. There was even a press conference after. And Johnny Maga posted, the propaganda coming from the Brits is insane. And this is a post from the Daily Mail, which talks about Elensky screaming at Besant. So it looks like that's not what happened. And the question then is, why is the UK media pushing out stories? Because Financial Times is UK media, Reuters UK media, Daily Mail, obviously UK media. Why are they pushing out narratives that Elensky yelled at Scott Besant? Trump did say that Elensky was rude. He said Elensky was rude, and we do have reports that Elensky overslept. Well, he crashed because, you know, right? Anyway, but why is the UK media saying that Elensky was furious and yelling at the U.S. Treasury Secretary? Man, the UK media, I'm telling you, man, they're always up to no good. Always up to no good, the UK media. Let's do some Clown World and we can wrap up this video. And how are we doing on time? Yeah, let's wrap this up. So, Duda, we are getting videos of the da-da-da. That's all I want to say to you. Walk on the wild side. Andrzej Duda, when he went to the White House, he was the first guy that went to the White House to talk to Trump. Now we have Macron. Next up is 008, License to Bore You. But Duda was the first guy that went to speak with Trump, and we are not getting videos of Duda waiting 1.5 hours so that he could speak to Trump for 11 minutes. And we have Duda sitting there in the White House waiting room, the reception area, walking around, waiting on Trump for 1.5 hours. And then he actually spoke to Trump for 11 minutes. So that's kind of funny. We have stunning and brave Kaja Kallas, who yesterday announced the approval of the 16th sanctions package against Russia because the other 15 sanctions packages were so successful that you now need a 16th sanctions package. And as she was announcing the 16th sanctions package, stunning and brave Kaja Kallas then announced that the European Union is working on, you guessed it, a 17th sanctions package. They have no freaking reverse gear, my God. Yeah, that's what she said. A 17th sanctions package is on its way. And I love her outfit, man. I love it. They love their outfits. The collective West, they do love their outfits. The Green Goblin, Kaya Kallas is dressed up in her little outfit. They're good at outfits. They're not good at much, but they're good at slush funds. They're very good at slush funds, and they're very good at dressing up. Halloween dressing up type of stuff. This they're very good at. But Kaya Kallas also said that that the United States is caught up in Kremlin propaganda. She said, if we look at the messages that come from the U.S., then it is clear that the Russian narrative is there, very strongly represented, Kallas told journalists in Brussels, stressing that the bloc is planning to support Ukraine right now more than ever, as long as it takes. As long as it takes, right, Kaya Kallas? Right. I think Putin understands exactly what's going to happen. Sooner or later, all of you are going to be bowing down to the United States, to Trump, and wagging your tails. That's what Putin said. Pretty soon you're going to kiss the ring and wag your tails. That's what's going to happen. But Kaya Kallas, she's defiant. Because, you know why she's defiant? Because she's stunning and brave. That's why she's defiant. For as long as it takes. She also understands that if there's no Project Ukraine, there's no reason to have her as foreign minister of the European Union, is there? Right? Anyway, one more, Clown World. This photo, which surfaced of Trump in the Oval Office with Vance sitting next to him. I think that's Vance sitting next to him. And then he gave Macron the high chair, the little high chair, the kid's chair to his right. So he had Macron sitting next to him as well on that little stool or the little high chair. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and X. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch. The link to the Duran shop is in the description box down below. Take care.